when we showed up at Sound City, what is this place? Because I don't know that we can make a record in here.
Welcome to Rock Docs, a podcast about music documentaries brought to you by Treble Media. I'm your host, Dave Lisabram. I'm here with my co-host,
Andrew Keats.
And our returning champion.
The People's
You may have
Champion.
noticed if you looked at the title, this is Nick's Picks Volume 3, I believe, if I'm doing the math right. And that means that the People's Champ is back.
Yeah.
Nick McCann, say what's up.
Hey guys, it's my fourth time on the podcast, but this is the third chapter in the series, Nick's Picks, which I'm excited about. It's gonna be fun.
Kind of like a weird Traveling Wilburys numbering convention happening or something, but we're making it work.
Yeah.
So before we get started, random question. If I gave you like whatever, $5 million today, and I said, go make a music documentary, but you have to like, you can hire other people. Like, it's not just a solo joint, but you are, for this to work in some kind of Brewster's Millions kind of theory, like you have to direct it. Like you have to be the guiding person who makes the major creative decisions. You can't just like hire whatever.
Can't just be the producer who like
right,
goes
and
out
hire
and,
Martin Scorsese and sit back. Like you have to do it. Like, you know, would it be good? Do you think you could? Do you think you can make a decent rock doc, given an ample budget and time? But you got to be the. You have to
Andy,
be.
do you want to take this one?
The answer for me is simple. It's not going to lead to a lot of conversation. No, I couldn't. It would be bad.
Well,
I mean, like, give me eternal life, and because in infinity all things are true. Yeah, I'd eventually figure it out. But short of that, no.
But you're a writer,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, sure.
Like you get paid to write stuff.
Yeah.
And
I think I could beat out the script of a decent documentary, I think. And the moment cameras came into play and sound and editing, things would start really devolving quite quickly.
So even if you hired a good camera person, sound person, editor, but you had to supervise them and make the ultimate creative decision, you still think it would go horribly wrong.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you're talking me into it now. Maybe I do okay in that sort of supervisorial role.
Okay. Nick?
Well, I mean, my documentary about Buckethead era Guns N' Roses, I think would be really good. And I'm in talks to. I think that's what I would probably do is just the middle Guns N' Roses, the middle
and
chapter.
Not mention the slash, the era that everybody knows.
We're just working on Chinese democracy. That's all.
I mean, that would truly be fascinating.
I'd love to. Yeah.
If it just was not mentioned that like all these other famous people were in this band.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would jam my life story and do it on the first go of it, but that doesn't stop some people, some iconic American musicians.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we have a no, but maybe, and we have a confident yes. So if I'm sitting on a nice.
I mean, David,
budget,
you're our hope here. I would expect that you'd be able to figure this out. You're a film school graduate.
That's true. Critical studies, not production. But okay, fair
Okay.
enough. I mean, I don't really have the like thing where I feel like I can put together a narrative story very well. Like I'm not a writer. I don't think that's my thing. I think maybe the visuals could be cool, but it might end up being more of a Moon Age Daydream kind of thing than like a linear beginning to end kind of situation. So if that's your cup of whatever that is
right now, putting yourself in the realm of Brett considers himself above mere journalism Morgan, which I respect that.
I mean, I think I would be the poor man's Brett Morgan is what I'm saying.
Sure.
My ceiling is poor man's Brett Morgan.
Yeah.
The floors are real low.
Yeah.
But I think maybe I could do some, do kind of an artsy impressionistic vibe kind of thing more than I could like really pull together a narrative that is, I mean, look, you can like look up a band's history on Wikipedia and then turn that into a script. But that would be boring and I wouldn't do that. So
AI could do that. Yeah.
I think maybe we've learned that the ceiling for my film might be higher, but the floor would be way lower than either of you guys. So it depends how you guys want to go with this.
Well, what inspires this question, David?
Yeah.
Is there anything that we were planning to talk about today that has you thinking on these terms?
I mean, it's related to the topic at hand, which we haven't mentioned. But today we're going to discuss Sound City, from 2013, directed by Dave Grohl, something. I can never pronounce the director's name. So what the director's names?
Yeah.
That's a running bit on this. So no, directed by Dave Grohl. And yeah, I mean, he got the money. He's a rich dude, so whatever. One way or the other, he made it. He woke up one day and said, "I'm going to make a rock doc," but he's Dave Grohl, so he could do that, right? And so he kind of did what we're talking about. It is related. You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. Yes.
And I'd love to see your impressionistic documentary on your problems with Janis Joplin. That's what I would like to see.
Setting the record straight on Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and Bob Marley, directed by David Liserbrand.
Yeah,
that's for the old rock talkers. If you guys go back into the library there.
Why Janis Joplin is bad, actually, but I don't hate women, and I'm a nice guy, and nobody should cancel me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be a real good.
It's been a little while since we have squeezed out of you some sort of widely beloved classic rock figure who you hate for no particular reason. But maybe we'll get one today. I don't know. We've got there's a potential a cavalcade of candidates coming through today that maybe we'll learn you really dislike.
Yeah. So Andy, let's do a quick draft. Who do you take first in the draft for David, the artist that appears in this movie that he has a problem with on a dynamic level, like just not dynamic enough?
Oh yeah, that's boy. Let's see, who would it be? I guess. Well, if I know my man David, he is not a Rick Springfield fan for sure. but I'm worried about putting Rick Springfield in the category of Janis Joplin and Bob Marley.
Dave Grohl did not worry about that, apparently.
Yeah, Dave Grohl might have them in the same group.
He's on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know anything about Rick Springfield other than what's in this movie, and like that's it. I don't
the stuff that everyone knows. Yeah, exactly.
It's not. I have no like beef with him. He could be great. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't not like people whose stuff I don't know.
Well, let's get into it, guys. Nick, why have you decided to bring to us this 2013 sort of classic, I think, of the streamer era, like a real leader in the beginning of the streamer rock doc era?
Well, I'm putting together a pretty good resume of my appearances with people that are extremely successful, movies about people that are extremely successful and kind of into their own shit, I don't know. But we did Garth Brooks, Metallica, Kanye, and I wouldn't say Dave Grohl is that much of a problem, but he's there's something going on with Dave Grohl in this chapter of his life that I find to be fascinating.
Yeah, it is a hell of a basketball team you are putting together.
Yeah,
really.
Slightly infuriating. I don't know if it's his intentions to save rock and roll while smothering it in a way.
Yes,
is really fascinating to me. And but it's all from the baseline of he's the drummer of Nirvana, and I'll always care about what he's doing. So
Nick, you have to go on a cross country road trip with Kanye, James Hetfield, Dave Grohl, or Garth Brooks. Who do you choose?
I think I'd really have to see Garth Brooks live, just like see what that's like.
No, I'm saying like you're
spending most of the.
No, you're on a cross country road.
Yeah.
You're just the two of you, just driving, taking the back roads.
Dude. God, the intensity of that car with Garth Brooks.
I don't know, but he has all the tricks to like Middle America, so he can help me through that. I'd like to talk to Garth Brooks about a few things. I think
definitely Andy? if your car breaks down in the desert, you want Garth Brooks to be there to be the problem solver.
You need somebody to build a bridge.
He'll fix it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or force his daughters to build a bridge.
Right.
It would be Hetfield for me. I have a lot of questions for Hetfield.
Sure. I mean,
I mean, I think I have a lot of questions for all these people, but like Kanye, he's out.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
I'd want to be in that
This
car.
is a classic
Yep.
FMK. And Hetfield and Garth, I feel like I would exhaust my questions by the time I got to the California border, and then we got another, 2,700 miles to go. So I probably would just feel like Dave Grohl, like, our musical tastes are closer.
yeah.
I mean, it definitely seems like like any sort of roadside attraction that you offered as something you guys should pull over and do. Grohl would be like, "Yeah, man, that sounds awesome. Absolutely, world's largest ball of yarn for sure, dude."
Yeah.
You'd go make
Is this
friends with
is
people.
this before we record this, or just because he might have some questions about our podcast that we did about it.
Let's assume that none of those people listen to Rock Dogs.
Yeah.
I'm confident in saying that, Kanye's not listening to this show.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to save this, but I'm having a hard time because I just can't believe it happened. It's such like a David Brooks setting up his column based on the conversation he had with his cabbie,
Mhm.
and like explaining U.S. foreign policy through it. But I promise to you and to all of our listeners that this genuinely happened. I watched this with my mom last night. She's here with the kids and needed to go through it again to refresh. And about 2/3 through, as sincerely as a person can, she looked at me and she said, I just did not realize that Dave Grohl was such an ambassador for rock and roll.
That's it. Bring her on right now. She can have. I mean, that's it, right?
That is
okay,
it. Is like
yeah.
like I was like, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, did this movie succeed? And then she said that, and I was like, this movie is a fucking grand slam. He what he wanted was to have a 70-year-old woman who was around in this era go, I'm so glad there's a good young boy who's decided to carry this on.
Somewhere, Dave Grohl just
Yeah.
his heart just grew like 2 sizes. He didn't know why. He just was like, wow, some old lady just recognized I'm the ambassador of rock and roll. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's his lifelong dream. Okay, so we should say that this is a documentary directed by Dave Grohl, starring Dave Grohl, about Dave Grohl. It's a Dave Grohl joint from top to bottom. It's about the studio, Sound City in Los Angeles or in the Valley, where many records were recorded. We'll get into that. And Nevermind by Nirvana was recorded there, which crucially Dave Grohl doesn't remember why, which is great. Really sets it up. And also the I mean, one thing we talk about in Rock Talks is like the classic shot of the guy sitting next to the big mixing desk.
Yeah.
You get that in so many Rock Dogs. You love it. This is a documentary about a mixing desk. I mean, that board is a star.
It's as if
the
it's
Neve 8028 console is like above the title. You know what I mean?
It's
Yeah.
it's as if you decided to make a rock doc about the proper way to tell the story of how your life changed the first time you heard the Beatles or Elvis.
Right.
Like a whole movie about the craft of telling that anecdote.
Right.
That's about essentially what this is here.
Yeah. So we learned about the history of this studio. We learned about the history of this piece of equipment, which is cool and important. And then we find out that for whatever reason, it's not really fully explained. The studio eventually closed in 2011, right when they were making this film, or somehow one thing led to another. They closed, and so Grohl purchased the console, which he moved to his own studio at his house or his compound or whatever. And then the more or less second half of the movie is Dave Grohl and various Foo Fighters and friends recording music using this console. It's just they're kind of like a bunch of all-star jams. And I'm sure we'll get way deep into that. But that is the structure of the movie.
Yeah.
Have I basically captured the movie for you?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the structure of the movie.
That's it.
and somehow that's a movie.
Yeah. It is. It's a movie. It's a film.
Yeah. I mean, so the first half of it or the first hour of it is like a pretty efficient little history of the rock era, or of like a latter period of it. It has a nice little arc. It tells the story through this place about what a couple different moves in rock music and how things were changing, and then it sort of uses that as a way in to tell the story about how the industry changed through digital technology. And it's not groundbreaking stuff. The approach isn't groundbreaking, and the subject matter itself isn't groundbreaking, but it is good. It is good and entertaining, mostly because the music is good, the people are compelling and charismatic and beautiful, and you mostly like want to be around to hear their stories. It's like standard rock doc fare, but it's good, and it's and it's efficient and moves fast.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't exactly say use most of those same words to describe the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a documentary that's just like a little nugget of music history that's interesting, and the documentary features an endless number of superstar, extremely famous talking head musicians telling you this story because Dave Grohl is friends with everybody, can get everybody on camera.
Yeah.
This is what that is.
Yes.
Right.
This is about, that's what it is. It's a
Yeah.
real good example of that, which is good. Again,
And they're bringing the goods, like all Neil Young, Tom Petty, Stevie Nicks. They're all like they're all willing to really talk and give their takes on the stuff that Dave Grohl's asking them about. You don't get like the reticent version of these people who's like, do I really have to tell these stories again? Like Tom Petty's leaning into, like, there's like 4 movies that you could get this era of Tom Petty history in, but he gives it to you all as if you've never heard it any before, and if he's never told him before.
Right. It's right around the time of the Echo in the Canyon documentary, and it's after the big Petty documentary, but he's at the age where he's ready to just start telling these stories. I think what's really interesting is in the first 15 minutes, it really, you see Dave Grohl play guitar, and that's fine. He's going to be the narrator. And then for the first 15 minutes, it's like a history of a small business. And they're just, these people seem warm. Everybody, all the artists love these people. And it's just this hive of creativity. And then there's a moment where he's interviewing the guy who created the Neve board, the Rupert Neve.
yes.
Is that his name? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's interviewing him, and Dave cuts to himself and just goes, whoa, or geez. And they just show his reaction shots to all this technical talk, and it takes me out of the movie immediately. I just was like, I couldn't stand that part. That was really, that was difficult for me, because it was such a, like you guys are saying, it's such a good little documentary that's moving really well, and it's setting everything up, and then it's just like a record scratch for me when he starts talking the technical jargon about the actual board with the guy, and he just looks at the camera like, are you guys confused by this? I know you are. Like, I don't know, that up until that point I thought it was just humming along like a really normal documentary. Then it kind of it goes in and out of different stories with the various artists that did their thing there. I thought the Fleetwood Mac section is really interesting.
Yeah, the Fleetwood Mac stuff's really good.
Yeah.
I actually, to your point about it being for long stretches a story of a small business, that's kind of some of the coolest stuff. And I wish it had. I was gonna say I wish it had the courage of its conviction to just do that, but I don't think that is this movie's conviction. I think that I think the movie's quite confused about what exactly it wants to do here. But if it had just decided to do that, I think there's ample room for a movie there. I mean, some of the best stuff is getting to know like the studio manager, and giving the people who were runners and moved up because they made really good guac and got more opportunities and then became producers in their own right. And here's something the movie doesn't do quite enough of, although it does a little bit, is be willing to like spend some time on the bands that recorded here that aren't cool. Like,
right.
I mean, yeah.
Like get Slipknot in there. It like Slipknot for whatever. Like, I don't like Slipknot, but the fact that they recorded there is part of what makes Sound City cool. That it like, it wasn't just part of a little era. It wasn't just like an outgrowth of the Laurel Canyon sound and then petered along afterwards.
like part of this movie is the Rick Springfield Reclamation Project. Isn't
Yeah,
that kind of what he does?
I would say so. I would say it does. I mean, the tent poles are Petty, Fleetwood Mac, Rick Springfield, and Nirvana.
Everybody's favorite artists.
Yeah, but the Rick Springfield thing in the middle it's like its own little mini documentary, but it's also it's supposed to be telling you how the owners of the small business started to try to get into like actual talent management.
Yes,
and he was like the golden
he was their guy. Yeah,
boy of the Sound City project, was like getting Rick Springfield making him famous. Essentially, it was like the biggest deal. And yeah, that was a fascinating little. It kind of wedged in the middle of the documentary is this story of how he gets discovered by those guys, the owners, and then has his rise, and then ultimately leaves them. I thought that was pretty well done by Dave.
I
to
agree.
an extent.
I agree.
mean,
And
good work, Dave.
Basically, what happens is they find this a very handsome, aspiring rocker, Rick Springfield.
Yeah,
and like they sign him to some sort of management contract, and the part about this is just they don't really explain a lot of details. It's said that like he was the one that hit, and they'd signed many artists, and they were trying to do this, but they never mentioned any of these other artists. Maybe it would have been interesting to learn a little bit more about that. Like, who were some of the other people they signed? What happened to them? And they got Rick Springfield acting lessons, and somehow apparently they were involved in getting him on General Hospital, which is like how he broke big. Because he had, he became extremely famous. Like, this is like such imagine a day when like somebody could become extremely famous among just the general community because you're on a daytime soap opera. Like, those days we're not living in that world anymore. And, he became so successful, and then eventually he like leaves, and there's this kind of tearful part where he's talking about how, like Joe Gottfried, who was, I think it was Joe, was the one that was like really the father figure type guy. There was Joe Gottfried
and his manager, his proper manager.
He became the manager, and there's this whole thing where Rick Springfield talks about how like he was convinced to dump them for other management, and it not only did not work out, but it wasn't the right thing to do on a personal level, and he really regrets it, and he's happy that he was able to make his peace with and rehabilitate that relationship before he died. But nonetheless, that's all interesting, but it just kind of like is like a weird thing. Like, wait a minute, these guys are managing artists, and how did that work, and what did that have to do with having a studio? Is this how the industry worked back then? Like, but they don't explain any of that, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like this little chunk about Rick Springfield. There's a lot of little threads like that in the movie that I just don't quite follow.
Yeah, my take when I was watching it was that there was a creative decision where they were like, we could drown this movie in explaining the nuances of the music business here, about how, like, the difference between just leasing space to a studio or producer, and we did a lot of that. And then there's a range of different deals that we were part of, but this is one where we got involved in the management side, and they didn't really want to walk us through all of that. I think it's safe to say we would be in the category of people who would have eaten that shit up, but I understand their decision to be like, we got to keep moving,
But also, does it feel like the movie was telling us that the Rick Springfield thing was that he has these teeny bopper like good looks, but his music wasn't taken as seriously as it should be? I kind of get that from Dave, and maybe later in the movie when he's doing the performance, like he's really excited. He's like telling everybody, "I get to play with Rick Springfield."
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he just really liked Jesse's Girl or something. But that was kind of odd to me. I don't really know where it is.
I don't like questioning. I don't want like presuming bad faith, but I guess I just don't buy Dave Grohl in that moment. I don't think he like is really impressed by Rick Springfield as the musician, and that he's like,
you think he's
overselling that? Yeah, I think he's overselling that, and like kind of doing the Hollywood thing, like, oh, I'm such a big fan, and then like,
but to tell the story of Sound City, Rick Springfield needs to have a song on the album that you're going to make in your house. Yeah.
Which won 2 Grammys. That album won 2 Grammys. If ever there was an indictment, like a worthy indictment of that institution, unbelievable.
Well, I will say this, like, the movie goes to great lengths to bring Rick Springfield back into the public eye. Prior to seeing this movie in 2013, like I hadn't seen or thought of Rick Springfield for, a long time. I'm sure he was doing interesting stuff, and as established, I'm not a hater of Rick Springfield. I just haven't really been.
No, just Janis Joplin.
But this was like a Quentin Tarantino kind of thing, where like all of a sudden,
totally.
like, oh, remember John Travolta? Well, here he is in Pulp Fiction. It had that kind of thing. And then subsequent to this movie, I then went the next 10 years without thinking about Rick Springfield until I rewatched it. Like, it didn't stick in terms of Rick Springfield, becoming more part of the public eye. And maybe he didn't want to or whatever, but it was just another interesting moment, I guess. But it didn't, it's not like Dave Grohl keeps trotting out Rick Springfield every time you turn around. He did his one thing and then he moved on, I guess.
One of the fascinating parts about this I would say the first half of the documentary, where you're basically leading up to the Nirvana recording, which saves it in the 90s. We'll get to that, but the character, the talking head, what a great talking head performance from Keith Olsen.
Yes,
he's the longtime producer for Sound City through the 70s.
Got the only man with a bigger jacket than David Byrne is Keith Olsen.
Right.
Oh, but I'm going to post a picture of his drip in this documentary on our socials, because he has a look. It is awesome. R.I.P. The man knew how to dress. Okay, carry on, Nick.
In the first act of the film, he's sort of laughing at everything, and he's got this grin like, you guys wait till you guys see what I do later.
Yes.
He's never really cast, but he's never Dave never really positions him as the clear villain in the movie, but he does end up starting a record studio across the street after cutting his teeth at Sound City for like 15 years. And the movie kind of indirectly, but sort of blames him for the rise of digital recording and that fake 80s sound that basically almost drowned Sound City pre-Nirvana. And I thought that was just a fascinating performance, because he's just giggling the whole time, like
he has
recounting things. But
he has a really great line with Mick Fleetwood. Apparently says that the Fleetwood Mac album that they make together, the first one with Buckingham and Nicks, is a little far from the blues, and he says, yeah, but it's a little bit close to the bank.
It's almost like Keith Olsen gets up and then pats himself on the back when he says that. The shit-eating grin is just.
Oh, I stopped the movie. I was just like, "Whew, that's good."
I needed to go walk around the house before I continue. But it's a good bit. But it's still. He's like, "Ooh, you're gonna love this for your documentary. How many times do you want me to take this one?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then they show shots of what he did with his studio, and it looks like a more fun place to hang out, man. In the 80s,
Dude.
it looks like Tomorrowland or something like that.
It looks like
dump.
where you would like.
The whole thing about Sound City is that it's always a dump, and it's always been a dump, and like they never explain like why they didn't,
make it
take out an SBA loan and buy a new couch.
Well, I was a little bit like dismayed with some of there's an early part where Grohl mentions that like they pulled up and he couldn't believe what a dump it was outside, and he like can't believe that they're going to go in there. Like, I don't know, like everything in LA looks like that. Like, like it's like the only way you could be amazed that that's what a sound studio looks like is if that was your first day in Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand like how famous Nirvana was when they recorded it. I mean, I guess they were like regionally famous in the Pacific Northwest, but
maybe
like indie circles. But
if there's a villain in this film, it is digital recording technology. This is like like the whole thesis of the film is like what Sound City is all about, and what it's all about is the vibe and the room and the specific sound that you get from this particular technology, which is this mixing board and people with the drums and the amplifiers and how you mic drums and blah, blah, blah. And like they bring in there's a lot of Trent Reznor, and it's a lot of like guys saying like, look, you can use technology and synthesizers and computers. Look at Trent Reznor. He's cool. So you can do that if you do it as an instrument. but if you're using it as a substitute or something for recording to tape, or so, it's not a very clearly made
Yeah.
case. But
I'll disagree. I think they make the case all right. That they're like, the way they make the case is basically like you had to know how to do it, and it's not that the process itself sounds so much better, although they certainly say it sounds better. But at the very least, you had to have some skill and craft in how to actually record things. And if you use digital recording as a tool to get around that, you're not going to make good stuff. If you're using digital recording as a tool to boost your natural ability and your wherewithal around making music, then it could be incredibly useful. But it's it's sort of a story of you need to know how to break the rules, or you need to know the rules before you can know how to break them.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a note when I was watching it, just in the middle of the documentary. I wrote just a note: Dave hates computers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, that's the whole thing. Is like,
and Neil Young really hates
really
computers.
we know
computers.
Yeah.
And that's why, yeah, I know he loves them. But that I think I took in the recording session when they're with Trent Reznor, I thought he was making the whole movie. They're making this argument about the human feel, and we'll get to that. The whole sequence about when they talk about feel.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. But I thought that was him kind of hedging it and saying like, well, yeah, there are some computers that are acceptable, but it's not.
Because Trent Reznor is in this movie a lot, and unless I miss something, he seems to only be there as the counter example of why they're not saying that digital is universally bad.
Right.
He didn't record at Sound City, right?
I don't think so. He has ties to Jimmy Iovine, obviously, but
sure.
I don't know if that they don't really say that.
But as far as everybody else that comes through, like Neil Young has, an extended period because he recorded there. Like, I think Trent Reznor might be the only guy whose relationship in this movie is that he knows Dave Grohl, and they needed to acknowledge that they are okay with digital in existing.
Okay, so based on my quick Wikipedia research, in 2008, Nine Inch Nails recorded part of their With Teeth album in 2005 there, and then 2008, they're the Slip album.
Okay.
Don't remember that one, but
okay.
Shout out. So around this time,
latter 9 Inch Nails,
Reznor was actually using this studio. So it does. They didn't just call him up and say, "Hey, man."
But that's not part of his narrative in this movie, right?
No,
that's not.
He doesn't know the names. He doesn't know the names of the runners.
No,
he's not like.
No,
dude. I love when the guy from RATT is like so impressed with the fact that he knows the studio manager. He's like, yeah,
the hair color,
dark hair, she's
right.
Dark curly hair.
It's not Siobhan. It's the one before, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Stephen Pearcy. Yeah, I love that guy. I will ride for RATT. I may have you may discover some classic rock artists that I don't care for in the course of this conversation, but RATT's underrated. RATT rocks.
Wow.
Big fan. There you go. Is that
well,
does that blow your mind?
That constitutes a surprise. That
is surprising.
That is.
I thought you would have been more like a Quiet Riot, Randy Rhoads style.
I mean, sure.
Maybe after doing
it's
the
not
show.
an either or thing, but RATT, I think, are a little bit more authentic to the real rock and roll than their the hair metal peers they got lumped in with.
Right. Bringing the Joker Man mindset to RATT. Exactly.
You
got to get into latter era RATT.
Subscribe to my side podcast, RATT, the RATT mindset. Anyway, this is not the RATT cast.
Could be.
But if anybody wants to co-host that,
so I want to we're pretty well into the movie here, but I do want to jump back to something that Nick said, which is invoking Echo in the Canyon. A movie that really shares quite a bit of DNA with this movie. The other movie I will throw into this cosmic gumbo here is It Might Get Loud.
Yeah.
And they all come out within a few year period of each other.
This is Obama era rock doc.
Yes, the Obama era of rock docs has this theory, I guess, that like you can't just do a music documentary about a thing. You've got to do a thing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
count on your ability to capture it all and like and be like some creative force of its own metal or something.
Andy, you're a genius.
I totally
I don't
see
throw that
that.
word around lightly. You, Stephen Pearcy from RATT. No, seriously. That is so insightful. I never noticed. Okay,
like,
go on.
I mean, there's something going on here where like you just don't need in this movie to start bringing musicians in to record on the soundboard a new album.
All right.
You just don't need to do it, right?
I think once we get into the second half of the movie, we're going to lose everything from the first half because there's a lot to discuss.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that we like really thoroughly excavate first half. I do want to say,
okay, but just to put a point on this, like the Echo in the Canyon is like you're watching that movie. I don't know if anybody, listeners haven't seen it yet, but basically
God
Jacob
bless you.
Dylan decides to do a movie about the Laurel Canyon Sound, and every once in a while it gets going and is kind of interesting, and then for some reason he like yanks you out of your body like an episode of Sliders, and suddenly like Cat Power and Beck are playing like Crosby, Stills and Nash songs for some reason, and it's just like, what the hell is going on right now? And and then It Might Get Loud, we did an episode on one I'm fond of and one of our first handful. And that movie is like the same thing where it's like they decided they had to have these three guitar gods, put them together, and like they just had no theory for what was going to come next except this conviction that the sheer personality and charisma of the people would carry it from there, and they didn't need to write anything else.
Right.
And like that part is really present here as well. And
Absolutely.
so I just don't know what was it about the rock doc industry at this time that like Hollywood producers, before they were willing to greenlight something, were like, well, what are you going to make that's new? What's the new thing you guys have?
It's very interesting. Now, I will say, in my opinion, this is a much better movie than those two, because those two movies really suck. And for all the problems I have with this movie.
This is like,
this is way better than those.
I mean, honestly, even the second half of this movie is better.
Everything about this movie is better than either of those two movies.
Than either of those two. Yeah.
All right. I do want to say, so one of the early kind of things that the movie, it's a weird thing that this movie does, that it starts early in the movie. It starts out with this like kind of travelogue narrative. You see Dave Grohl driving a van, and then you hear him talking. And
why is he in that van the whole fucking movie?
He's talking about like you see him driving basically to Sound City, like through the valley, and he's talking, and there's this like clearly written narration.
Which like doesn't he live in L.A.? Like what?
Yeah, there's this clearly written narration.
It's not a road trip.
You leave your life behind when you're going on the road and this life of rock and roll and blah blah blah. It has nothing to do with anything. While he's giving this narration, it's like it says who the writer of the movie is, so it's like it kind of takes away from the first person narration when the star and director of the movie is talking, and then it says written by Mark Monroe. Like, did you even write this? It was a weird directorial choice, and and boy, when that started, I was like, man, this movie's gonna be a tough hang. Like, I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was like, but I gotta say, man, like at some point I just noticed myself being caught up in the story of the first part, the Sound City part, and I was just thinking, like, Grohl, you bastard, like you always suck me in. That guy, like somehow, look, I don't hate Dave Grohl. I don't think he's. Some people seem to hate him, but I don't think he's really hateable. Like, I just feel like he's not bringing bad energy into the world. He's not a bad guy. You can just not be a fan of the Foo Fighters or find him kind of annoying, but I don't think he's not a villain in any way. But and somehow like he always sucks me in, that guy. I don't know. I'm not going to put myself on the side of like I'm too cool to be sucked in by Dave Grohl from time to time. I'm just not going to do it.
What do you got there, Nick?
But every time I'm like, oh man, Grohl, come on. And then somehow I don't know. Go
if
ahead.
Bruce Springsteen says that narration in the beginning, how do you feel about it? I mean, is it better for you? I mean, it seems like he's doing a Bruce Springsteen one-man show when he sings
Very
that.
much
When he says
so.
that.
Nailed it. Yes, it is.
But I don't-
It's very much, which
I
is
don't mind it.
also yeah.
I don't mind it in the beginning because it's like, okay, he's going to be he's taking us on this ride, and he has these songs, you know. And they had
All
these
we've
songs.
got are these songs, man.
Bang. Yeah. And I love.
We will
you know,
find out later in the movie if they had the songs. But,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, so but then the movie abandons that trope or that like you think this is gonna be the whole movie. It's like the thoughts
No.
in Dave Grohl's head as
So,
written by a guy he hired, but
So I do not like the Foo Fighter. I think I've said that on the show. That's not a band I like, but I don't. I don't expend much energy on that opinion. It's just not something I listen to or have ever really liked. It's fine that a lot of people do. And I don't like Dave Grohl very much, but I can't imagine disliking him really because I think you said it well. He's mostly good to the world around him. If there's anything that makes me question that, it's probably this movie. Like this movie, like gets me much closer than I ever have been to a pretty cynical view of him using this like Labrador Retriever persona.
Yeah. I think that's
To like elevate himself into this ambassador of rock position in a way that I think is like kind of like the evil CEO in the film that plays the father figure to our hero in the first 2/3 of the movie, and it turns out like he knew about the poison being dumped into the river and that was deforming the children downstream, you know, like, and it becomes the bad guy in the latter third. There's something here that I just don't like how eager he is to position himself as the good guy. That makes me think that's what a bad guy would do.
right.
Interesting. So
I mean,
he's the villain
for
of the
me.
movie.
It's like I
still don't want to be an anti-Grohl guy, but if there's something out there that makes me really question his motives, it's probably this movie.
I struggle with it more just because, you know, the Nevermind album is just the biggest cultural explosion for me. I was like in 6th grade. Kurt dies when I'm in 8th grade, so it's like this is so important to me. And at the time it's the first music that I was into that really pissed off my parents.
Nice.
And but he's evolved into this bridge between Gen X and baby boomers, and he's connected them, and he's become this champion for garage band music essentially. And like your mom agrees, it's like
my mom
he's
also
the ambassador
said like,
now. He's carrying on this tradition, and he gets in front of cameras and talks about the human element and that's I don't want that from the drummer from Nirvana. I just don't. And you know, at this point he's family. He's like as part of the American musical family, he's like my older brother who rocks, you know, but I don't always like talking to him.
my mom also last night while watching this movie said, you know, I really regret not taking Nirvana more seriously when you were listening to them. So like there's like
it's not what you want to hear.
Yeah, he's chipping away at the thing. I just listened to an interview with Michael Azerrad. He's did the updated version of the In Utero book.
Come As You Are.
Come As You Are. Yeah. Did you guys read? Have you guys read that book?
No,
I read part of it a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, what Kurt used to say about Dave to sort of like make fun of him was in a sing-song voice. He used to say, "Dave's the most well-adjusted boy in the world."
I think it seems fair, right? I mean, he doesn't seem tortured.
Yeah.
Really.
No.
Right. There's a little bit of a Paul and John. Like, you know, John Lennon's dead. Like Paul will never be that cool or that cynical or that whatever. You know what I mean? Like he'll never be able to be that cool. I'm not comparing Dave Grohl to Paul McCartney.
I think it's cool that Dave Grohl actually I think it's cool that Dave Grohl just like recovers from the end of Nirvana and starts making his own songs, and a lot of them are really good. You know, he has a few great songs, I would say, but I think that's really impressive. I think it's pretty amazing that he was able to pull it off and have this second chapter. But this third chapter is where it gets dicey for me, I think.
That's where you leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say to your point, David, I'll just say to your point that my memory of this movie is that I like absolutely hated it. I hadn't
Really?
seen it. I hadn't seen it since it came out. And when we picked it, I was like, it'll be good for the show to do a movie that I really hate, because we mostly do movies that I like. And then as I was watching it, I was like, what did I hate about this movie? It's like pretty good, actually. And I was like taken by the first hour, and I was like really on board. And then the last 40 minutes happened. I was like, oh right, this is what I did not like about this movie. But I kind of had convinced myself that it was like that the whole way through. So I had deleted the good part of this movie after seeing it, basically.
All right, let's make the turn.
Okay.
So the studio closes, although it's still open. I will say, like Bob Dylan recorded part of Rough and Rowdy Ways like 3 years ago there. Like it's still, but I think it closed and then it was opened by new owners, and it's still called Sound City, but whatever. Okay, that's not part of the movie. So the studio, the original owners, go bankrupt. They sell everything off. Grohl buys the Neve console, which we know and love, and we see them moving it to his studio, and then he just gets then he gets a bunch of people together to record music.
Yeah, well, he like looks into his own camera and says, I think they sold it to me because I'm not just gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna use it
a lot.
Big Garth Brooks moment there.
Yeah,
big Garth Brooks moment
big
there.
Big Garth Brooks energy right there.
He knows I don't know.
It's like Dave, you are holding the I don't know.
Yeah.
That's tough to swallow. And
then you're shitting on it. I'm shitting on it, but it's also like he's trying to do creative stuff with some of the most talented people in the world. So is that lame? I guess not. I mean, he should use it, right? I mean,
no, that's the thing. And this is the Grohl paradox.
I know.
Is that like he should use it, and like there's something refreshing about somebody who becomes a rock star and their impulse is to call Paul McCartney and be like, what if you played with Nirvana on this world famous soundboard that I now own? That's like, the 10-year-old who gets to like play for Notre Dame football or whatever, like
he does it. Yeah.
So basically what he does is most of the songs are with the Foo Fighters, like as the backing band, with that exception. But like basically that you see them recording a song with Stevie Nicks, one with Rick Springfield, one with Leaving from
Fear,
the
dude
from
Fear. Yeah.
Cool. And then I might be missing. Oh, there's a little bit. Yeah, there's one with just Trent Reznor and Dave Grohl and somebody.
Dude from
Josh
Queens
Homme,
of the Stone Age.
Homme.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite track.
Which I gotta say that
that's
part
just an
kind
instrumental.
That instrumental kind of rocks.
Yeah,
that
that's
stuff's
actually
good.
That's really good because basically it's Trent Reznor, more or less leading the pack.
Just using computers.
Yeah. And then he does a song.
Thank God he got rid of tape for that part. Yeah.
So good. He does a song with Peter Hayes from Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, and then the finale is him doing a song with the surviving members of Nirvana, Chris Novoselic, Pat Smear, Dave Grohl himself, and Paul McCartney. Now, should we deal with the other stuff before we get to Paul, because that's the finale?
So Stevie Nicks Stevie Nicks has. I think that's a cool moment to watch her work out her vocal pattern and stuff. I thought that was kind of cool, just singing about the devil and everything. And I thought that was amazing. But what was the other guy?
So look, I adore Stevie Nicks. I'm a human who has a heart and a soul and ears that function. Obviously, I love Stevie Nicks. But like the Stevie Nicks part is why is like where you can see that these like contrived attempts to come up with an album with like basically nostalgia acts are never going to produce something good, where like she's asking for feedback and everyone's just like, it's great, you do whatever you want to do. Like there's absolutely no creative back and forth that you would expect
Right.
in the creation of like a piece of music that any of these artists would have done at any point in their career. Like no one is saying no to anything. It's entirely like that clip of George Lucas talking about episode 1 where the other guy keeps just saying it's great, yeah, it's going to be great, and they just go back and forth with each other saying it's going to be great for like 30 seconds. And like, so it's cool to see an older Stevie Nicks sing, and she still has pipes, but like it's like the 85th most interesting thing that Stevie Nicks has ever recorded, and there's like not a person in sight who has like an idea of how like it could be improved, except
Right.
to just like cheer on the proceedings.
So what
Right,
you're
you've
saying
got
is
Nirvana
this,
producer Butch Vig there.
oh
not-
yeah, I was
He's like, that
Yeah.
sounds great. Like,
Yeah,
is that all
so-
you do, buddy? Like, come on, you produce a lot of big records. Like, it seems
they
like
needed
you've
Rick
got,
Rubin. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like you've got more juice than that. I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of like, okay,
Uh,
we have an assignment,
Yeah.
and it doesn't.
It's homework. Yeah.
All these pieces don't work in a movie. If this had been a different situation where like, Dave Grohl had a web series where like
Yeah.
once a week or once a month or something, he got his famous friends together and they just like jammed and tried to come up with a song like, on the spot, that would be great. Like some of those would end up being good and some of them would be
Mhm.
whatever, but it would be low stakes and it wouldn't be a part of a feature film that everybody's talking about 10 years later. You know what I mean? Like it, but it's like, it's very much like exactly like the It Might Get Loud stuff where like they had all these people there, they filmed it, they spent all this money and time and hype. They couldn't not use it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
maybe they recorded a bunch of other tracks and they didn't use them. So I don't know, but it kind of seems like they couldn't tell Stevie Nicks or whoever like, turns out the song I wrote for you was ass and we left it on the cutting room floor. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like it just seems like they didn't have,
It's-
I don't know. There's
Yeah, it's to to repeat myself. It's just like the Echo in the Canyon thing, where you're like watching and you're like, wait, why are we all of a sudden at some club gig with Jacob
Marcus
Dylan,
Mumford or whoever.
with Marcus Mumford, like playing versions? Like I'd much rather watch Joni Mitchell do like, what are we doing here? And like
Mhm.
that's I like it's no longer about Sound City at this point. It's just
right.
I don't know.
Well, the
Yeah,
movie takes
it's
pains to talk about like how this Sound City had this special room, and the room had this special vibe, and the drums just sounded better in that room. And like, there's somebody who's like, mathematically that room should not have sounded good, but for some
Yeah.
reason it did. Like whatever,
Yeah.
And then they take the mixing board out of that room and put it into a completely different building, and then they have all this magic.
and then they
supposed to happen.
record there for 40 minutes.
It's like they made their
Yeah.
own point. Like, no, it was about that room. It's not just about this board and getting people. You know what I mean? It's really weird, very strange.
Yeah.
Like nobody notices.
Well, yeah. I think after seeing, the rock doc masterpiece, that Get Back, where you see like how that even these people that make magic and they catch these magic moments, there's hours and hours of it being tedious and frustrating and hard. So if you get people together for like an afternoon and say, hey, we're going to make a song, this is what happens. You see
Totally.
like
Yeah.
arguably the worst track that Paul McCartney's ever been a part of. I don't know, like that's what it
Yeah.
feels like.
You kind of stepped on where I was going to go. Was
Sorry.
like, so
Yeah.
this
No,
is
it's good.
so this
good
is
timing.
Yeah, that's fine. So this is after, we're now watching this after we've all seen Get Back, right? Like
Right.
when we're talking about it now, but when the movie came out. So in Get Back, you have like the most famous scene in Get Back is when Paul is just dicking around in the bass and he ends up writing the song Get Back. Just like it falls out of his fingers onto the bass, and the whole song just appears. And then in this movie, you have Paul dicking around on some kind of weird guitar contraption and trying to come up with a song to play with the surviving members of Nirvana. And, I mean, it's like got a groove and whatever, but like, it's like, this is not the same guy. Like if you A/B'd those two scenes, you would be like, did somebody really kill this guy like and replace him with a clone? Like it's just like that,
Right.
and he's done other subsequent songs that are better. So it's not that like he doesn't have the ability to make any good stuff. This just wasn't the moment. But Paul is famous a guy who does not self-edit.
Yeah.
Like he just first thought, best thought, goes for it, whatever. And that sometimes ends up, creating like she came in through the bathroom window or something. And then other times you get whatever this song is in this thing where like, yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? You're in the room with Paul McCartney. He's jamming on a song. Like, are you going to be like, Paul, that fucking sucks?
Yeah,
Like,
it
bad.
definitely.
I
I mean,
don't
it definitely. Like, I don't necessarily expect anyone to start like being super critical. Like they're not starting a band. They're not making a real album. It just goes to underscore the problem with the premise that like
Yeah.
no one is here to like do an hour of work and have somebody be like, this isn't working, man. Do you want to like go try to work out your part a little bit for, like that's not the deal. And I get it. Everyone's established. No one's like here to like
Right.
be stressed out. But that's why it's not good. And that's why I
Right.
don't need to see it,
Yeah, and Get Back, they are stressed out because they're
Well,
trying to do
that's-
something
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well, you see the moments in the beginning of Sound City where you see what made Sound City, I think, an important place was that you have Jimmy Iovine, you have clips of him actually getting into, I think he's yelling at the drummer or he's complaining about the drum sound. And I think
Stan Lynch,
when they look back at Sound City and this board and all the memories they have on it, they're thinking back about how amazing it was to overcome these conflicts and go through this process with people and really recover from it and come out of it with something amazing. But that doesn't happen at Dave's house. It's just rock camp, and that's what
it is.
It is.
It is. This
but
is
with Paul, after seeing Get Back, I mean, not that I watch Sound City all the time, but like you can see the edges of what he was like with the Beatles, but it's so muted in this version of it where he's still the alpha in the room. He's the most important musician in the room by a lot.
Yeah.
And they all give him reverence for it. And he's kind of like that in with the Beatles. He's directing, he is the alpha in the room, but back then, when he's in his prime and he's doing it, it's a lot more cutting and a lot more real. This is just an afternoon where they're banging out a song and they're all, he's so used to people being fans of him that he knows how to act. But
Sure.
yeah, that's it seems like Dave was trying to build toward this climax or this ending where, this is the Beatles are the most important thing for me musically. And I know Kurt felt the same way. And, we're doing it. He's going to play in like the Kurt's position in like the In Utero lineup of Nirvana. And yeah, it's a real dud of a song. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It doesn't seem like they're
like trying to sound grungy, sort of.
It's like
very wet recording.
It's like his Helter Skelter singing style.
Yeah, right.
I don't.
And also Paul had no connection with Sound City. Like imagine you make a movie about this famous recording studio, and then the last 20 minutes of the movie are with a guy that you were able to get the most famous.
You just
whatever. So great, but he never. There's nothing to say that he ever set foot in Sound City or heard of the place, and you know what I mean. Like, there's no connection there. Where, like you're expecting something where he like walks in the door and he's like, "Oh man, I remember mixing like Live and Let Die at this desk or something," and it's just like at one point they're like recording this song that they come up with, and he's like, "All right, let's do some vocals," and he looks at Dave, and he looks at Chris and Pat, he goes, "So who of you
sings?
Like, who's going to sing the backup? Like, do you sing? Like, he's not even sure who these people are. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, he obviously knows who Dave Grohl is, but
it's cool. It actually stood out to me that he remembered to ask, "Does Chris sing?" I'm like, oh shit, he knows his name. That is sick.
Yeah, okay.
But like, I'm happy for Chris Novoselic that he like knew to ask whether he sang like by name.
Right. But it shows how casual this is. Like, a person who was in like, again, the most famous and successful vocal harmony band of all time.
And
like, all right, let's just sing,
And like, look, we're crushing this part here, but like, it's not uninteresting to see these guys be geeked out to be playing with fucking Paul McCartney, right?
Sure.
Like it's not uninteresting, but it like the vibe to me is like a weird 10-minute like YouTube short that's like
Right.
they had cameras there and somebody puts it out and it like goes viral for a day and a half and you're like watching and you're like, that was kind of interesting. It's like just not part of this movie in any way, really.
Right.
And like there a couple times in these last 40 minutes, Dave has like this very sweaty like talking head segment to trying to like draw it back to the board to like remind you of the thematic connection of why we're doing this at all. And it like it just doesn't work in any of those instances. It just feels as sweaty as it is.
And there's no self-awareness about it.
Yeah, no.
It's not like he's like, man, this was fun. I don't think we captured the magic, but you know what? You see, this is what rock and roll is. Like, you try things, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been a framing that maybe would have made sense, like a little bit more of a humble approach, but that's not what this is about at all.
I think Mick Fleetwood puts together what Dave is trying to say with this whole thing pretty succinctly and just really easily. He just says, yeah, you could do it by yourself, but you'll have more of a human connection if you do it with other people, and it's better.
Yeah.
All right. Stop the movie right. That's what you wanted to say, Dave. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like when they go into that discussion about feel and how all these musicians who don't know how to articulate that just kind of say these things about what it's like to be in a room with somebody and connect with them musically. I know that's a big part of what, as an audience member, that I'm looking for is this connection, but that doesn't work. I don't know if that's in the second half or it's kind of in the middle. But
I think it's right around here. I mean, so first of all, like, I don't need to be convinced really that like feel is an important component of what makes a band great, right? Like, I'm not sitting here being like, no, a band is just the sum of its component parts, and like if you have a great musicianship, and great songwriting, you'll have a great band, and that's that. Like, I have no doubt that feel is very important, but boy, do this group of musicians not make that case well at all.
No, no. Other than at the end in the alternate, in the negative, by saying like this group of people does not have the right feel. They don't have the right chemistry. It's not the right moment. It's not the right place and time, and therefore it's not going to be good. It's the whole last 40 minutes of the movie is like those all-star jams at the end of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or whatever, when it's just never good. Other than the one time Prince played a cool guitar solo, every other moment of that has sucked because it's just not. It's like, what are we doing here, guys? There's that awkwardness, and but just the fact that he doesn't explore that, he doesn't acknowledge it. They're not real about it. You know what I mean? They're like trying so hard to be enthusiastic, and it's such a tough.
There's like a filter on the camera, that part that like makes it look like an Ozempic ad. I was just like, I can't.
At the end,
during the feel
too.
section.
Oh,
yeah. I was just like, I was really struggling. That's worse than the recording of the album. I gotta say the field discussion. That's the low point of the film.
So of the musical pieces at the end, the Trent Reznor one is pretty good.
I enjoyed that.
The Motorcycle Club one is pretty good. You only get a little bit of it. The Rick Springfield one, I'm not convinced.
No.
The Trent Reznor one I thought was really interesting because it's, Dave Grohl is a singer that we've lived with for almost 30 years now as like the front man. No, and I he's got moments that I like.
Yeah.
He does a thing that I like sometimes, but it's cool to hear him singing over, if you listen to the album, the song Mantra, you hear him singing over what generally feels like a Trent Reznor composition. I think that's I'd like to hear a few more songs with them collaborating. I wouldn't mind that. That's kind of cool.
What it did, it convinced me, and I know, David, I believe you have said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe you've said that Queens of the Stone Age to you feel like the forgotten band of that era, or the forgotten great band of that era.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I probably said that. Sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a band that I had missed, frankly, and I was watching this and I was like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to start my Queens of the Stone Age journey.
I think you'd get into it.
Yeah. they're coming to town. They're playing the house.
I love
they're no
Phoenix.
RATT. They're no
love
RATT,
that.
obviously.
No, I'm saying you can.
They are coming to town. That was part of it. That was part
go
of
see
it
them
as well,
live
yeah.
and see if you're on their vibe.
Mhm.
And
I think
see if it
Josh
works.
is generally a good talking head. I like a Josh Homme and
Mhm.
good talking heads performances in this. I did want to talk a little bit about Butch Vig.
Yeah.
He is I think he's kind of the glue of this documentary. He or like I don't know what you'd call it. He's a fascinating character. He's in a lot of rock docs. He never in basketball. You'd say he's a guy who doesn't stop the ball. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
he's a team player. Doesn't make it all about him, but him and Pat Schmear, good talking head performance. I think
Yes.
he's pretty.
Yeah, Pat Smear never says that much.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful the way he does
Maybe that's what it
that.
is, but yeah.
I don't know anything about him really except his bands before the Nirvana, but yeah,
I mean, he was in the Germs.
I
He's
always
done a lot of
enjoy it.
cool stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Just yeah.
Yeah. Some all right. So I don't know. Like what else do we have to say about this?
That's about what I got for it. I just I would love to hear if anybody hears this and they were like kicking around studios or production houses in the late aughts. Let me know what it was about what was thought of as marketable in the rock doc space, that they all had to have like another thing. They all had to create a product.
Project,
Yeah, a project. I'm really fascinated by that.
I want to call out one moment that if I had to right now rewatch one moment from this movie, it is when they're talking about like the drum sound. I
Yeah.
think this might be part of the feel section. I'm not really sure, but you see Dave sitting at the drums in Sound City, and he starts playing the "Smells Like Teen Spirit" beat, and then it cuts to the "Smells Like Teen Spirit" video, but it cuts to him, playing the drums in the video, and it's like such a flex. It's the biggest flex of all time. Like, hey guys, wake up! Remember, that's me. Like the drum sound that is the beginning of like one of the most impactful, important songs of all time that everybody's heard a billion times. That's me. I did that right here. I'm the guy. Like, you know what I mean? It is such a flex.
I gotta say, and he earns it because it's good. Like the edit the editing works really well, and so it's okay. It doesn't. It's not. It does what the second half of the Grohl show doesn't do. Is it delivers on what it has to offer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this is why his number's hanging from the rafters. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
This is his.
I think as far as like people that are involved in those cultural events like that, I mean, that Smells Like Teen Spirit video is so massive for everybody, and he seems pretty. He's keeping it together. He's not like some people on the other side of those events. It doesn't go so well, but we're just living with Dave Grohl all the time, and that's where we're at.
Dave's got. I'm
Well,
frankly interested.
Done.
Yeah, he's still not done. He's still not done. We're like. Also, I guess we should say there's some retroactively sad shots of Taylor Hawkins here.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure, but it's cool. It's cool to see his.
It's cool to see him. Yeah,
enthusiasm captured.
Yes, absolutely.
One thing we didn't talk about was there is a pretty hefty section in the movie that is about the recording of Nevermind, and it is really cool because we don't have there's no big Nirvana documentary that gets into that kind of stuff. I don't think, and so it is kind of cool to get that whatever 10-minute chunk of the movie. Like you separate that out, and that on its own is a very cool little slice of rock doc.
That little 10 minutes of their Nevermind basically gets a 10-minute rock doc. Damn the Torpedoes gets like a 10-minute rock doc. Fleetwood Mac gets like a 10-minute rock doc, and all three of them are awesome. All three of them are great. Now, Fleetwood Mac also doesn't have a great documentary, which is really surprising, and I've got to imagine somebody's working on that.
Mm-hmm.
But you do get some of that in the Jimmy Iovine what is it?
Defiant
Defiant Ones.
Defiant Ones, yeah.
Yeah, you basically get that story over there again, and like longer and maybe even a little bit better. But the Nirvana one is there's not a good replacement for that out there.
Yeah.
Clearly, Dave Grohl has watched a lot of Rock Dogs. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like when he went into this, he knew what the assignment was. He knew what he was trying to do, and he shot his shot. You know what I mean?
I gotta say, I really like the first hour of this movie. I don't know what it was about me 10 years ago that I don't remember liking that, but the first hour of this movie, I don't really have that many complaints about it. It's pretty good.
Well, it's almost like he took that note and after this creates Sonic Highways, which is basically 1 hour episodes about different recording studios around the country. And that, I think I didn't finish all, I watched a few of them, and that's more what he should be doing. I think going around and like, if he's really interested in recording studios, structures, like that has a lot less of the fat in it.
Go be the Guy Fieri of the music world.
Right. But he also does close each episode with he closes each episode with the Foo Fighters making a Foo Fighters song with like regional influences, but it's still a Foo Fighters song. But
dude,
that was the conceit of that album. Like, we're gonna go.
Like, I'm so like, you don't need a conceit. Like,
just talk to Steve Albini. Talk to Steve Albini.
Stop it with the conceits.
Yeah.
Like, Dave, you're the conceit. You're in the room, and we have the money for this project because you're here. You don't need to add this thing. No one wants that.
Yeah, it is a little bit like U2 disease, where U2 now, like, everything has to have a concept, and it has to be packaged in a certain way, and it's a new invention, it's a new era, whatever. Like, you know what, man? Just make a good U2 album. How about do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how about just make a Foo Fighters? And I actually liked. I think their most recent album was pretty good, and obviously, came out of horrible circumstances. But I think it comes out of this that I'm more of a Foo Fighters fan.
I think so.
Than either of you guys, and more of a RATT fan. So, contrary to your prediction, it turns out I like things, Andy.
Yeah, you're the pro. I guess that's true.
And Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. All these people are cool. Love them.
Yeah.
All right. What do we do? What are we doing here? Are we going to recommend this movie? Are we? What's our recommendation situation with this movie?
Nick, I want to hear what you have to say about this.
I would not recommend it. I would say if you're interested in like what Dave, if you have questions about Dave, this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Watch it on Prime, on Freebie, whatever. It's on there.
Freebie really has to figure out its ad placements better. That's
rough.
A real
problem.
A real shit sandwich.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think also if you're really interested in like Dave's work, there's I think Back and Forth, his documentary it came out a year before this. So it's pretty much a standard documentary of the Foo Fighters. That's more. I mean, they're also doing a project in the middle of that too, where they're recording at his house, but it doesn't seem as dominant. It's more an even documentary. But this one, the first hour, maybe just watch the first hour. The second hour is tough.
Yeah, I mean, can we just say like this is a good 1 hour, really good, highly recommended 1 hour documentary, and then the last 40 minutes is like bonus content. You can check it out or not.
It's like on the DVD.
Yeah.
But we're not like legally obligated to adhere to the format, right?
Yeah.
We can just say like, I don't have to recommend it.
It's not like History of the Eagles, where if you watch it, you are required by law to watch both parts in completion.
And it just gets
like
better
if
and
you
better.
don't, then like I will have a violent altercation with you. It's not like that.
It's not like History of the Eagles in that it's not the greatest movie of all time.
Right.
That's like saying, "Oh, I stopped at Godfather 1.
Yeah.
Not watching Godfather 2.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah, it's just like if somebody like said, "I've never seen any Star Wars. Should I watch it?" Like you can just watch the first 3. You don't have to continue. Nobody's obligating you to continue or pay any attention. You can just watch the first 3 and move on with your life. And that's really the first hour of this movie is that.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
that piece we recommend. The rest of it is an interesting historical document. Let's put it that way. Is that
I feel like there's something's going to happen with Dave Grohl in the next 30 years, and it's going to be important that we have the last 45 minutes to explain what
it's gonna
we should have
reveal
known.
something?
Yeah, it's going to be like this is going to be the part of like the profile that people like send around and are like, I don't know what everyone's so surprised about. We had this lying in plain
was all
sight for
there.
all these years.
Yeah.
Do you really think he just wanted to jam with Rick Springfield? It doesn't make sense. You're telling us all
Do
along.
you think he's going to be the Do you think he's going to be the president or the figurehead of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame eventually? Big week for them, by the
Dude,
way. But
you and my mom need to go get coffee or something because she asked me that last night.
yeah,
I think he's going to be the president, just straight up president. Why not?
Yeah,
he's going to
Dave Grohl for
be in
president.
He's going to play in every.
He'd be like,
every
I'd like to change the title to lead singer. I'm the lead singer of the Rock and Roll.
Yeah. Yeah, we just got to get in the room together and just bounce ideas off about what we're going to do for the next ceremony. You got to you can't do that over Zoom. God, I hate computers.
You're telling me Rick Springfield isn't in this place? Come on. What are we doing here? All right. Nick, how do you feel about yourself having
I feel good. We did it. We did four's a big one. I really gotta take it up a level to 5. My 5th one is gonna be
start doing the research now. Figure out what
I
you're
got
gonna
some ideas.
All right.
Are we planning the Eagles month? History of Eagles 4-part.
Honestly, for a long time we were saving it, and now I think we're just afraid of it. We just don't know how to do it and when it's going to happen.
Yeah,
one day.
4 eps, 4 different guests. Let's just knock it out.
I don't know, man. It seems like a big lift. That and Long Strange Trip.
Oh yeah,
are just going to be. I don't know how it's ever going to happen. But, who knows?
Yeah,
We've done other dumb
marriage.
stuff. Why not that? Thanks for listening to Rock Docs. If you liked what you heard, please go ahead and leave us a review, blah, blah, blah. Let us know what you think about the show. We're on Twitter, Rock Docs Pod, and Instagram, and Blue Sky, doing that a little bit. People seem to like that now, believe it or not. Rock Docs is a Trouble Media podcast. Trouble is a fully independent media outlet devoted to music. You can find out more at troublezine.com. If you'd like to support the community of writers and creators behind Trouble, please head to patreon.com/troublezine. And if you want to hear Nick talk about San Diego sports, go to the Kept Faith podcast and follow him online. He's a good hang. Say hi to him if you see him around. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nick, thanks for doing it again.
Oh, it's always fun. Let's do it again. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Walk into Sound City, either love it or hate it.
Looks kind of dumpy.
Brown shag carpet on the wall. That's the kind of thing that you would do to your van.
But walking down the hallway and seeing all of those platinum records on the wall, that's what I'm talking about.
Tom Petty.
Fleetwood Mac.
Neil Young, man.
Cheap Trick.
Chili Peppers.
Pat Benatar. Guns N' Roses. Nine Inch Nails. Foreigner.
RATT.
Johnny Cash.
Metallica.
Dude, how many music albums have been made there?
We chose Sound City because Nevermind was recorded there.
This guy, Rupert Neve, designed these next generation consoles.
There's only 4 like this in the world. There's something about the Neve sound.
It's a pretty badass console.
When you came to work at Sound City, it was a tape-based studio. You knew what you were getting.
Sound City was a place where real men went to make records.
Oh, during the 80s, you listen to one of these stations where they play rock and roll. 7 or 8 out of 10 songs were recorded at Sound City.
I was wondering whoever used the board after us, if they had a burning sensation the next morning. Then they'd know we were there.
Other studios started to shift.
Everything's got to be digital.
Now you can record audio into the computer.
I heard some young guy in a band say, you don't have to practice anymore, or you just slice it up in the computer, and it comes out perfectly. Sound City, it just couldn't keep up.
Started selling off the gear in Studio B.
I thought that board would just go straight to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I'm trying to move on, but it's been hard.
Like many things, there's no bookstore, there's no music store, and there's no Sound City.
In this age of technology, where you can manipulate anything, how do we retain that human element?
Let's rock, let's play, let's record.
Be true to yourself and make the music that you love.
Chemistry is something that happens between people.
the conversation became something much bigger. How do we keep music to sound like people?
It sort of like evolves until it hits this point and maybe goes zoom.